call me blue every time. Blue, I need to.
All right, you're live.
Thank you. Good evening or afternoon, whatever, everyone. The date is Monday, April 15th, 2024, and the time is 4:40. We are going to call to order the first meeting of the Cleveland Police Commission's first executive leadership meeting. So the idea behind this meeting is that we will get the chairs of committees together along with the co-chairs to sort of discuss sort of what is going on across the commission with hopes that we can increase efficiency, increase collaboration, and the work that we need to do for the community. My name is John Adams. I'm co-chair. This is co-chair Sharina Zayed, and we are going to start this meeting by taking a roll call. Commissioner Benito.
Present.
Commissioner Van Leer.
Present.
Commissioner Wong.
Present.
Commissioner Gary Ferguson is running late. Commissioner Rodriguez will be excused if she doesn't attend. And Commissioner's co-chair Zayed.
Here.
All right, so the next item of business will be to basically adopt the agenda. And so I know that the committee members, I don't know if there's anything anyone would like to add to the agenda or if there's anything, any changes you would like to make. Commissioner Benito.
One thing I wanted to suggest that we add to the agenda is a discussion about like workload and making sure that all the commissioners are involved in helping carry the load.
I think an update needs to be added for the other committees. Because, for example, the conflict of interest committee for the ad hoc is connected to all the work because of the lawyer. So I can give that in accountability as a brief report if you want, and there can also, I think, what I see is that we're not dealing with the core issues right now by just talking about these committee reports. It seems to be a reduplication of what we would have in the full commission meeting, which is coming up. What we need to talk about is the needs of the committees, the strategic ways that we are going to be able to get those needs met. So,
I agree with you. But what I want to say to you all are commission chairs, you already have your leaders on this commission. So I think that whatever you see fit that needs to be communicated under your committee, I think that you should do it there. So if you feel like, I guess in a certain way, and like I said, we can figure this out if we want to have. I think the goal is not to have this be how the committee reports are in our meetings because they never really seem to go into like the details and stuff that we might need to. So I think that if you feel that there's a better way, do we need to maybe send the agenda out and then have you all kind of list specifically what you would like to talk about under your committee reports? I think we're open to that. But my idea was that this would be your opportunity to really get into the nuts and bolts of what you felt like needs to be communicated with the co-chairs, but also the other committee members, and then maybe those conversations and updates would then allow us to figure out how we kind of collaborate across the commission.
I just wanted to say also, my understanding is not that we're giving committee reports the way that we give committee reports in the full commission. It's not, this is everything that we're doing. This is a challenge we're having, or these are the things we want to collaborate with across committees or conflict or whatever it might be.
Yeah, because I was thinking like just for example, when we were at the training meeting last week, there was some stuff that came up with, was it the bias-free policing? And so this would be a good opportunity because I know that the policy is doing some work in that area as well. And so the idea was that this would be the meeting where chair training and chair of policy to say, hey, maybe we need to, collaborate and maybe form a joint work group for the committees instead of having two committees doing the same thing. So the hope is that we can do those type of things here. Are there any other additions? So Commissioner Wong, are you okay? Would you like to actually formally add something to the agenda, or would you like to just kind of take the liberty to sort of
I'm not
discuss?
that committee doesn't have like a formal chair, so I can give an update, but I think the lawyer and the issues of the records, the discipline, and also the executive director are pretty important things. I mean, the records especially affect every single committee's work. So I'm happy to just give an update in the accountability committee.
I would say whatever you
That's
see
fine.
fit. I think if you feel like that's there, then I think that's okay. I mean, I think the whole point is just for us to communicate better and sort of, like, if you see that there are connections that maybe others are not seeing, then this would be the place to help us all get there and then, take that information back to the committees. Are we okay with adding the workload,
Do you want me to make a
issues.
motion?
I have a question.
Because we're not gonna be voting on anything, so I think we can just,
Conversation.
Do you also want to, like, maybe all of us give our summary reports and things, and then we have a more organic, like, cross, committee conversation, or are we gonna follow this 1, 2, 3? It may work, I don't know, it depends on whatever.
I would say because because this is what we have planned, I think what we're open to is figuring out what the best way to conduct these meetings is gonna be. So let's try it the way we have it, and then if it feels like redundant or it feels like it wasn't really efficient, then I think we should talk about what are some better ways to run the meeting.
And if the organic conversation,
Just
follows, this plan, we can go with that.
So are we okay with adding a workload, and then Commissioner Wong and everyone else, are we okay with, for today, if you feel like you need to add something particularly under your committee that's not here, that we just do it? Because that's the whole point. Is everyone okay with that? Okay. I'm still trying to figure out if we need to formally do all these things, considering that we're not really voting on anything.
No, I think it's okay, we can just say, yeah.
So are we okay? I mean, can we just like a voice vote? Are we okay with adopting the agenda with the addition of the workload?
Sure.
Okay, voice vote. Thank you. All right. Now, our purpose statement, to align strategic objectives and progress related to consent decree compliance. So that's really the goal here, is for us to basically get in alignment with each other as committees. I know that, it is sometimes chaotic, not only just being a commissioner, but also being a chair of a committee. And so our hope is that we can, like with the example of what we're talking about with the bias-free policing, that we can maybe streamline some things and align some things in a way that can help us to, I dare say, lessen our workload. I don't think any workload is getting lessened anytime soon. But this would be a good place for us to sort of find some common ground. I think that being a former committee chair, it's definitely a different position that you have on the commission when you are chairing the committee. And so I think that sometimes, as co-chairs now, we try to support as many committees as possible and come to as many meetings and everything. But then sometimes that's really exhausting for us, because instead of like sometimes doing work per se, you're like in a meeting or something. So hopefully this will help us you all to have some support as as committee chairs, because that's a huge responsibility as well. And so with that said, I think we can move on to these, and we can figure out what we really call this, but I do want to emphasize that what we are hoping to come here with, particularly, are ways that we as leaders on the commission can push our compliance with, particularly with consent decree, forward. So what we would like to happen with these status reports, we would like these status reports and these meetings to be focused on sort of where we are on our framework, because we made the framework, but we never really get an opportunity in our meetings to update on like where we are exactly and what we plan for the framework from last year. So in addition to whatever else you would like to add, please also, give an update on sort of where you feel like you are and what your plan is. And the reason why we want to do that is because this is a live document, and we would like to keep that document as current as possible. So if we need to make some adjustments, I think we can make the adjustments, but let's try to connect the reports to sort of that 18-month plan that we came up with. So we'll start with Chair Wong of the Accountability Committee.
So I'm just gonna look at our 18-month plan. I'm gonna go through it. Some of them projects have not been started. So the Police Accountability Committee, I'm gonna go through the work groups first, and I'll go over the other kind of committee projects. Brady Giglio, we just went on a short hiatus because there were the two lawyers were on vacation. So we are, I think we are close to a rubric, and then we will be reading most of those records. The thing that we are still missing is that we don't have full disciplinary records on all the officers that we have been requested. And I don't know what the update of that is. I'm a little confused as to going back between the judge and the city and us, what the status of those records are. The last time I heard, was that these records are in different places and databases. I don't believe that to be true, because the record that we're basically asking for is whatever the hearing officer has at the disciplinary hearing. So that is able to be put together for these disciplinary hearings quite quickly. So we don't understand why. I think it was requested, that record in October. So we still don't have those records. We'll continue, and we're doing this because we feel that looking at the full record is much more fair to any officer. So we've had to err on the side of being conservative, that we're not making any assessments or judgments on the officers when they're included on this so-called list, whether they are Brady or have credibility issues. It's just that this was alleged, or this was an incident. So we're still working out, whether if they were found not guilty, what do we do about that? But it's more like a public records type of thing. So that is, we'll probably start that again next week, because everybody is back. And Lou is also on that work group. So, and it hasn't been really that much reading, because these letters are not really that difficult. So probably the next steps would be to refine the rubric, test the rubric, and then maybe train some people. Eventually we'll need people to read these documents. I'm imagining that these disciplinary files could be 50 to 100 pages, but they're standardized. So in some ways, if you know what you're looking for, you can find them. The next one, so we're slightly behind schedule on that because of the records issue. A lot of these were behind in accountabilities because of the lack of productive records from the city. The second one is a discipline work group. We are done with the discipline matrix and then the manual rules. So should we just send them? Because I saw that you did collate some of the questions, but Martin, is it easier if you just go through the document and read our questions and answer them? Would that be easier? Because we made changes on those documents. The manual rules is like, what, 25, 30 pages, and the other one, they're pretty extensive. So to gather those questions might be a little bit more difficult.
You guys just reviewed the discipline matrix and the manual rules and made suggested changes and comments, or what do you mean?
We made manual rules. It's not the discipline matrix, it's the corrective action guidance. It's the whole GPO for that,
Okay.
including, I think we're missing kind of the matrix or chart for that. And we had a lot of questions, and some of them are constitutional questions.
Okay.
So at least maybe if we could just give you the document, you can answer the questions, and we see if we need more, information. So that is, and then the plan for that is to take it to accountability and read it through there. So Mr. Chura has already been there for basically the entire time. So then we'll pass it through accountability, and then I guess we can take the corrective action simultaneously to policy at the same time. Maybe we should just do that now while Martin's looking at it, and then we can pass it simultaneously and then put it to the full commission before the summer, hopefully. We want to be careful though, because the manual rules it has been completely revised, and it is basically, it trumps everything above it, beyond it. So it is the actual Bible that we have to follow. And okay, so then the sexual misconduct work group, I'm not sure what the progress with that is, because I'll have to talk to Ms. Garrett Ferguson. We are with the evidentiary hearing,
I'm sorry, which work group was
the
it?
sexual misconduct work group. That was something that I think you and Ms. Mediero wanted to do. I don't know what the status of that is, because we had delayed that, or put it on the back burner for a little bit. If somebody wants to take it up, we can actually have other commissioners from other, if,
In the framework, that's not until the fourth quarter of this year.
Right.
In the framework, so you have time
So
on that still.
we should Yeah, Q4, no, it's Q4 23, it says.
Q4 24 on mine, so
Oh, okay, all right, well, regardless, and then we are right now looking at the evidentiary hearing, document. It's already gone through rules, we have one discussion already in accountability. I've talked to Mr. Mordu, who's on the Brady Giglio, and he agrees that there needs to be some significant revisions, so I will try to draft something, in coming weeks with him. And I think one of the problems with that evidentiary hearing draft is that there are people, commissioners, that have very little understanding of the disciplinary process. So maybe if we could refine those, because some of the questions that Ms. Garrett Ferguson asked were just, I think, coming from not understanding what, the procedure looks like.
Would
So,
you be willing to put give us a time on how long it would take to?
well, I mean, I have to say, again, I had offered many months ago to write this with Jason Goodrick and with attorneys that are outside, and they didn't want to do that. So any delay is not intentional, but this is the most important procedure that we have.
Yeah, and I just mean from going from.
I have no
today
idea.
going
I mean,
forward.
it will, because I don't imagine that the draft would be hard to do, but I'm saying that there will be resistance from some of the members of my committee and other people because they're not understanding the discipline system.
Well, that's
So,
fine, that's neither here nor there, but I'm just saying from this point on.
I will hope to write something by next week. I think the 18th is a little,
too soon.
Too
So when do you
soon.
think you can have it?
probably next week. I was on
Next time,
vacation
next week,
till,
like when?
well, I have to talk to him, so he's still reading it. It was very dense for him to read, and there were a lot of issues with it. But it's not any delay. We just have to get it well in time so you can put it through policy too.
When is
Yeah.
the next?
No rules.
Rules,
So
rules, and then,
the proposal that I put out was for, it sounds like both Jim and Alana, I don't know if you haven't responded, but are available on May 1st. So the
Mhm.
accountability and rules can meet together
Mhm.
on May 1st. And maybe we could at least have, if you have a draft earlier next week, that gives us time to look at it.
Yeah, we
And
can do that, and
I think
then,
by the very latest, it should be the 24th then, if you're writing something new.
okay, but this is again, we had 7 months to do the shots fired policy. This is no fault, and I had wanted it taken through accountability, which had the subject matter expertise, mostly because of Mr. Chura. And also I read all the documents. I would suggest actually is a lot of documents that Ryan had to go through. I can send them to the rest of the commission because it's going to be hard, I think, to understand why one hearing procedure might be preferred to another unless you understand how this process even goes. It's not like, I don't think it's terrible, the more I think about it, Ryan, I don't think it's terribly that complex. It's just that we don't know really what happens in that hearing, right? That's the black box.
There are some black boxes in the
Yeah.
process in which we've got contradictory information on.
So, but that may not affect us because I think the one thing that we need to figure out is for the commissioners to understand that we are just adjusting discipline. It is what an appellate court would do. An appellate court would never allow other information to be introduced. That's just how it is. That's what unless something was missing that was integral to the investigation. I think there's some commissioners, and then how the hearing procedure is written, and we can talk to Martin, was that there would be briefs given by the officers. I'm not sure what those briefs would contain,
So-
but whatever.
To the commissioner, so I just want to make sure that we keep this tight and focused because we are going to run out of time.
Right.
So
But
I
I'm
think
just
what
saying, that's my core problem, is that we will have a differential, when we vote on this, and this is probably the most important procedure, we need to have some uniformity and understanding about what this
So what we can do is, as a group, we can assist you with that. If you feel like there's some misunderstandings, some miscommunications, or we should be helping you with that. To
There's
try
like
to-
200 pages of reading,
Right.
that's the problem.
So I think that what we need right now is, with that date would April 24th work for you to
We
get
will
that
try,
over to Pete?
we will try, but again, I'm not going to rush something that we should have written this quite a while ago, and I think Ms. Benito and I both agreed that it would be written, so I don't want to rush something that, I'm not trying to obviously delay, but I didn't see this draft until maybe,
So
a
is
few
there
weeks ago.
something that anybody who's here now can do to help you to meet that deadline?
I think that perhaps the policy, or perhaps like the chairs of the other committees can read some of those documents, better understand the discipline system, and I'm happy to assist, and then spread that information to their committee
So
members, the other commissioners.
Do you think, as the lead on that project, do you think it would be like, because I know that for me, if you sent me something, you said, hey, I need you to read this, can you get it done by this date? I can do that for you. Do you think that you could do that for us, and then we can do our part that you need?
We can send it, but the problem is, we're not done with those. Ideally, we would have those discipline charts done, and that would be a lot easier just to look at the chart. But there's a lot of conflict with that. The commanders were all called out of the meeting. Our major problem now also is that Commander Carney's gone on leave. So I think we just have to do the best that we can. I do want to reschedule that meeting with as many commanders as possible. If Commander Simon can.
The other part of this is it possible, if there's like so much work, is this something that we can do piecemeal? You know, kind of like with the rules, how we sort of would, like you all would pass
No.
one rule, and then you would like, could we, like, I mean,
We won't be
there's
able
no,
to do any hearings, and we have.
no, I know we won't be able to get through the hearings, but can we slowly push the work forward if it's gonna take a while? That's all.
Well,
I think one challenge here is that we have a draft that we have been looking at, discussing, working on. And right now, to my knowledge, there's only one commissioner who is saying that they believe that the entire thing needs to be rewritten. So, and that is their, you're allowed to have, or they're allowed to have that opinion. And also, I think it's reasonable to say, if you believe that it needs to be rewritten, which, it seems like I haven't heard other commissioners agree with that, then here's a deadline for when you need to rewrite it. So you said that the 18th was too soon. Okay, it can be extended to the 24th. But if it's, at the end of the day, if you don't, if the commissioner doesn't get it written, I think we need to move ahead with continuing to review and work on the draft that we already have. And so we're having all this discussion about delaying, like elongating the process and doing all this based on just one commissioner thinking that it needs to be rewritten. And so, respectfully, I think that there's a deadline. If you want to have another draft be considered, then have the draft done by then.
so my answer to that is that the delay was caused by the members, please let me finish, members of the accountability committee not being integrated into the system. Mr. Chura certainly knows a lot more about the system than I do, but there were profound mistakes that in it, it's no fault to anybody, but to keep working for it just seems strange that this is our most important process. And for GPOs that are also important, there's been 7 months spent on this. I'm in no way trying to delay this because I know that we have a pending appeal, right, from a citizen. However, if we don't get this right, I'm again saying I take no responsibility for the legal liability that is being caused. And no offense to Mr. Bilat, I do think that he should not be anywhere near this process because of the conflict the city has with us on records. So again, what I'm saying is I will try my best, but I really resent being pushed towards a deadline when other commissioners had not listened to me about this process to begin with. And I don't know if you even read my comments on it. So you've never had a discussion with me. How about this curiosity, Ms. Benito, Commissioner Benito, say maybe
Okay, so
Commissioner Wong, you
Commissioner
may,
Wong,
I'm just
so-
saying,
no,
let
no,
me finish.
Commissioner Wong, please.
Maybe there is
Commissioner Wong, we still have
something to
two
be
more
said.
committees that we need to
Because
get
I have,
to.
no, let me finish, please. When I was in the rules committee and then there was discussion, I said nothing because I'm being criticized for speaking too much. And then you guys were concerned I wasn't saying so much. So which is it? You can't just simply say, because there's a deadline, because of some technicality, let's have an honest discussion about the actual part of this process. This is extraordinarily important. And I will go on record saying that I oppose it. I don't care if I'm the only one. Mr. Chura agrees it's not good either. But you haven't had these discussions. And for someone that it left accountability, that didn't have the subject matter expertise to see everything that was wrong with that draft, it's a little bit annoying to hurry something like
Okay,
this.
so what I want to say is, like, this is not the point of this meeting.
That's fine, but so I will try my best to
So
get this
what I'm gonna
through.
say is, I think that there's a general consensus among the group that the 24th is the deadline. You do as much as you can do. Like I said, we're offering assistance before then.
So Martin and
Because-
Jason had 3 months to write this.
Okay,
Me
so.
and Brandon
hold
have
on,
10 days
listen.
to
Okay,
fix
so,
this. And it requires significant fixing.
okay, so Commissioner
So you can
Wong.
explain to the community why you want to give some bad product for our most important
Okay,
process.
so
And I will
what I'm
say this in the
gonna do
main
is-
commission
okay.
meeting. And I'm not going to be
Okay,
responsible
so
for the liability you
Commissioner
create.
Wong,
for this
Commissioner Wong,
commission.
this is not contentious.
It is
You're-
contentious
It's
because
not, it doesn't have to
for
be
people
contentious.
that don't contribute, to like hurry someone else along who has actually contributed is a little bit
So,
annoying.
all right, so what we're gonna go is, Commissioner Van Lier, I think you had something, I think at this point, we need to move on from the accountability because we don't have a lot of time left. But I don't know if you want to make a comment, and then if you wanted to move on to what you wanted to do for policy.
Yeah, I can talk about policy.
Okay.
So looking at the framework, yeah, the surveillance tech is the first piece there. That's been a very active group. We have put forward the ShotSpotter policy. So, we haven't done a lot on the license plate readers or other aspects, but we have things in planning stages. We have a community forum that we're looking at the end of May. So that's starting to move forward. But yeah, obviously ShotSpotter is taking much longer than expected. Excuse me? I can't hear you.
I don't know if we can add the TAC committee, under that, because with the TAC committee that, myself and Commissioner Wong attended,
Mhm.
I think about 2 weeks ago now, they talked a lot about the integration of all those other systems.
Right.
Those are quarterly meetings, the next one is June 20th. So I don't know if maybe that can be put in the, like somewhere as a subgroup or maybe its own category, and then we can send you like purpose objectives. But they're still working on that type of
Mhm.
information as a group because we only had the one meeting. It was more of an intro meeting
Mhm.
where they really gave us an overview.
You're on the agenda for Wednesday's policy meeting.
Okay.
Report out.
Okay, so would that
I
go?
believe you are anyway.
I'm just wondering, would that go on under this, or should we create another group? Just so it I guess for.
I mean, it's surveillance
accountability.
tech. but
What I'm gonna
it's-
say, just for
Okay.
time purposes, why don't you look at the framework
Okay.
and then figure out where you think it should go? And then maybe communicate that to the chair before the
Yeah, we'll
meeting.
talk about it.
And then
Okay.
that way, then you can maybe one of the things that could be on the agenda would be updating the framework and adding what you need to add to it.
Okay, that works.
I want Commissioner Van Lier to be able to finish. I don't know if you're done yet.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Behavioral Health and Crisis Intervention Work Group has been meeting. I know we're looking for more people, another commissioner ideally to jump in and help with that work. Because there have been, I don't know if you want to say much about that, but it's ongoing. It's just a lot.
Yeah, I just said, initially Kyle was gonna, work on that, but, he doesn't have the capacity, and so it's just been me, with that work group, and I would like to have a second commissioner to help with that. Just because there's a lot to do and also a lot of, kind of strategic planning that we need to do, and Commissioner Van Lier and I are working on that, but I just would I think it would be better to have two commissioners.
Recruitment and retention, this is nothing has really happened on that. We need to move forward on that. Discipline, I mean, that's really been accountability. We've already talked about that. And that'll come through policy at some point. Vehicle pursuits, that's getting started with a work group tomorrow, actually. So that is starting to move forward more slowly than we anticipated. But that is happening. The GPO is under review. We did, as everybody knows, we have a process that we're working on with the division to move forward. And so there's a lot of different pieces that are coming to us that way. Bias free policing, we've already talked about that. We have not worked on that. But that's all, that's pretty much it at this point. Am I missing anything?
I hope not.
Yeah.
Okay, and then, is there anything else from anyone on policy? I know we have a couple members of actually a few members of the committee here, so.
We can talk about it tomorrow in the vehicle pursuits. I don't know if everyone saw my email. My understanding is that the current policy was updated after Timothy Russell and Melissa Williams. So I didn't see the original request for the records. So it wouldn't make sense to only go back to 2020. It would make sense to at least go back to 2012 when the incident happened.
So I think we can talk about that tomorrow. I'm not
Yeah.
sure it fits in here, but there was a report from the previous commission around vehicle policy and the vehicle pursuits. And then the Christopher, was it Villan, he, as the IG, put out a report. And it sounds like a lot of what the current policy is based on that, according to the division. So that'll be, I'm assuming I haven't had a chance to look at that report yet, but hopefully.
I'm asking
Some
for
of
the
the-
data,
Yeah,
which
I
would be-
understand what you're asking. We can talk about it tomorrow. Or you all can talk about it tomorrow.
And move on to training.
And so the items that we have in the police training framework is the use of force community event, which we had the first event, and we are planning on doing the second one in I believe it was July that we discussed. And so the staff is working on identifying dates, and also Commander Magooth is working on working with his team to determine when they're available, and then identify potential locations. So that second event is in the works. Then providing feedback to the CDP training review committee. So we have members of the committee that are on the curriculum, the training review committee, and so we attend those meetings. And then they also send us different trainings for approval. So something that is updated here is that we should probably add to the framework is that now the city is asking that the full commission approve training. So that will need to be reflected, but we hopefully tonight we'll be voting on the, I really hope we'll be voting on the needs assessment and the training plan. That also includes the updated flow chart of the training review process. And so that's generally been going well. Haven't had a lot of concerns with that. The other piece is the bias-free policing, which was an item that I wanted to talk about today. It's within the framework that we want to review current and past bias-free training curriculum, and then also look at how look at the current literature and the best ways to teach it. But then also we recognize that we don't want to look at a training if we're also gonna revise the actual bias-free policing policy, which I know has been something that the policy committee has talked about wanting to do. And so one of the things that we suggested in the training committee was having a joint work group of the policy committee and the training committee to review the policy, and I think we would have a lot of the same experts that would be coming to talk about the potential policy and the best ways to train on that policy. So it'd be a way for us to collaborate on that together. And so that was the big thing that I wanted to talk about today. And then also we are working on getting ready for to kind of work on the back end on the 2025 training plan with the division. So that will be there kind of from the start of that process, including the need assessment that will be conducted for next year.
Commissioner Long?
Could I ask what potential changes are being considered for the bias-free policing policy?
Nothing is being considered yet. We're just talking about getting a work group together to review it to determine if we should make changes.
I think the idea was that I know that it's placed in both frameworks. And I know that it's currently in the framework for training. So the idea was that because they're in both frameworks for both committees, that the idea would be to bring both those committees together, because whatever changes are going to be made, they're probably going to have to come back to the policy committee anyway. So nothing has been discussed at all. There's no plan in place. We just thought that it would be a proactive thing to do to bring those two committees together, sort of how about what you're doing with policy and accountability with the investigations, because they kind of go, hand in hand. And so we're just trying to proactively put a group together so that there can kind of maybe be a holistic assessment of where the policies currently are and where we might want them to go. And then eventually they're going to have to branch off into those two committees to put the policy in and the training in. But it would seem like less efficient to have policy having their own work group at this point, and then, training having their own work group. So we have done nothing on that, but we just want to bring people together to start.
And especially being more efficient in not just in terms of commissioner time, but also bringing in experts, to not bring in bring in a set of experts and then ask them 6 months later or 4 months later, or 3 months later when we're working on developing the training. It makes sense to do it together.
I do want to say, given that bias-free policing will be with a level 4, a group 4 violation, and training used to be under accountability. I mean, if I volunteer in the policy committee, there should be some assessment of that, because I'm going to assume, that a lot of one way you deal with accountability is through training, right? Proper training. If there's and from what Commander, was it Captain Ryan showed us about that training, it seemed to me quite deficient and there's also concerns about whether bias-free training really, in the sense of implicit bias, I guess, works. So I would recommend that to get the ball rolling, maybe if Brian can do some research on what are the best ways. I know that I sent out an article many months ago, Anthony Greenwald, I think he is the guy that invented the implicit bias test. So he said that the implicit bias training, he has not seen any indication of efficacy in 20 or 30 years. He recommends what is called discretion elimination. So you can teach the bias, but the way to affect the outcome may be a different solution.
It's like, we don't want to get into the weeds or too many details. I think that those are ideas that should be brought to the table. I think all the ideas of how we should approach this should be brought to the table, because literally there's been no discussion about any policy, any training. Like the training committee at the last meeting requested that Commander Magoo give us the training materials that they currently have on. So I think those are good ideas. But right now, literally nothing has been addressed. So I think if you already have some proactive ideas about how to address it, I think that would be a good start to kind of get the ball rolling. Oh, sorry. Edie Gilbert.
I just, I know you're getting to the end of the agenda, you gotta do public comment, but, so what I'll do with this is I have some notes that you all gave on. First, I'll say congratulate yourselves. Most of your goals and your timelines thus far on your framework have been met. So the projects that you mentioned are starting right when you're supposed to. You're then in Q1 of 2024, and you're moving into the projects that are slated for Q2. You're discussing it. So your planning was good, and you're sticking to your planning for the most part. There's a few projects that are a little bit behind, and we'll note those. The bias-free is definitely a work group that needs to start between policy and training. There's no doubt about it. And I will tell you from having experience, there are a myriad of community experts locally that would be willing to join this if we just promote that we're looking for people. This is something the community has an extreme interest in over the years. It's probably one of our top commented things. So as you take this on, you need a work group that's going to set a plan between policy and training for how to align this, what you're going to look at, and accountability. You guys you're on policy and you're the chair of accountability. So, there's no reason why you're not involved in that way. Everything doesn't have to be assigned to, specific things. You can collaborate. But good job on your framework. I will have it updated by Friday and resend it with notes that we mentioned here. And we'll send it out for feedback from other commissioners. And we'll have an updated document then.
And I do want to say, Commissioner Wong, I think that you should consider, because there may end up being like 2 tracks on that bias-free policing. There could be, an implicit bias track and another track about, because it's not just one thing, right? So if you would be willing, like maybe you can take the lead. I know that you seem to be interested in the implicit bias piece. So
I'm not. As I said, I'm interested in that it hasn't been very effective. So I'm interested in using the social science, and it's part of the work group that was not mentioned in accountability, that there would be, I do agree that we have like personal experiences with bias, but there is a broader scientific kind of assessment from the community of what these things work. And I think Mr. Greenwald, I'm happy to reach out to him, and he seems incredibly interested in police reform as a social scientist. So I'm just recommending that we also get some national level experts on this, because we can set the stage, because I think Cleveland is unique as a city, because of its racial dynamics, that, and that it would, maybe obscure some of the other things that are at play. And so that is what, and also, again, if the implicit bias doesn't always work as a training, you need to find a solution to limit that bias, right? I agree with you that there's bias, and in a very heated moment that can come out, unfortunately. So yeah, I'd be happy, because there is already a work group in accountability for the social science aspect.
Okay. I'm gonna go to Benito, and then we're gonna have to move forward with public comment. So I just wanted to just give you the opportunity.
Yes, so the goal here was not to, you know, it's great that you have somebody you'd like to bring in. I look forward to getting to work with them. I think the idea was for us to determine a structure. So that's what I want to bring us back to, is a structure for how we do a joint work group.
Right.
And also making sure that everyone's okay with that.
Point taken.
So could we discuss that? Do you have a preference on what you would like that to look like? So we just have to have less than 7 commissioners.
No, I think it makes sense, I mean, especially if we have, what's that?
Yeah, no, I'm just joking. It's just like, yeah. So we're
Yeah,
very-
no, we can figure that out, I mean.
Okay, so maybe you and I can
Sure.
get together on.
But also not a quorum of the communities.
Yes. I mean, I think we might, and depending on, we'll have to
We'll
look
figure it
at
out.
what the options are. But yeah, so Commissioner Bentley and I will talk about structure. And then,
I guess the last thing I would want to say before we have our public comment is maybe what we can do the next time we meet. And I guess with this time work for people. So we can.
it would be better if it were not at 4:30. It's just, it's hard for me, like after 6 o'clock is generally
Okay.
better.
How often do you plan to have these
I think we
meetings?
were just once a month. Like, ideally, we were talking about this a week before the full commission meeting, because what we would like to do in these meetings is we will kind of know what's going to be on the agenda for the meetings, and then you all can come in as committee chairs and make sure that the items that you need on the agenda are on the agenda, and we would ideally like to send these agendas out a week ahead of time. So the hope was that we would meet maybe like that Monday or Tuesday before, a week before the full meeting, and then that gives us time to finalize the agenda and then give the commissioners a full week to look at the agenda and have whatever attachments and everything they need for them. So that's the goal.
Okay, sometimes Tuesday there might be a meeting at 6, just so you.
We
so
can
I guess
figure
you
it out.
recommend.
I
Are we gonna be able to call in for these meetings?
don't see why not.
Okay. So, we're just adding a lot of, that was a workload issue, so there's a lot of meetings.
And I would say if there's anything that you feel like there's an area for collaboration, and you kind of know that maybe there's a space to work with another committee, if we can bring those, that would be great too.
I do have one concern, I forgot to ask about it. So we are having Mr. Wallach on Wednesday. I really do think it's just out of politeness that we give him questions. Martin and I are gonna meet tomorrow for the agenda. But he may need to research things, so to get the most out of like the hours that he's giving us, I have not received any questions. If there's no real questions about the executive director thing, I think we need to move quickly to the records issue. He's already received the documents that he needs to do for the records. And he's gonna estimate about 5 to 6 hours to look through them and develop a plan. I think that, should we open the floor, since like it's to other questions that we may have? Do we want, I mean, just as a structure, do we want submitted questions for him just out of politeness? Because he may need to like think about it. It's not like we don't want to put him on the spot. There might be things that he needs to research. So, but I've not received any questions, which I find a little bit concerning, about, because there was definitely a lot of back and forth about what his legal opinion even meant for the executive director spot.
One thing that might be good is to suggest to him to watch the part of the meeting when we discussed it in the last, would have been February's meeting. I think that will also articulate some of the different understandings and interpretations of.
Which meeting was it? Was the full commission meeting on Thursday?
Yeah.
Okay. And is there anything else we can give him to, I think, make him watch the June 14th meeting, I guess.
I mean, I couldn't imagine anything beyond, this is what you stated in your letter, your opinion, can you explain it? I think it's gonna be probably more focused on his opinion.
Right,
Explaining
so-
the different parts of the baby.
Okay, so I would, if we have more time, since we brought him out, like, if we can talk about some of the other issues. I think if he can talk about broader, like, because we had some commissioners that voted against still the conflict of interest on that letter, which is a very clear indication. So I would maybe propose that he explain to us what a conflict of interest is, because I think a lay person would have a slightly different opinion, than some people would overestimate it, some people would underestimate it. So I just want suggestions, that since we have brought him out and took quite a bit of effort to get him out here, that we give him reasonable questions. I'll send out the email again to ask for questions.
Thank you. And then public comment, Lou?
All right, right now it's really good evening. When last year, when you guys all started, lots of the standing committees was set for the pictures you could see at the time. And at that time, I already knew probably later we will have lots of intersections we have to take care of. So this is a very good opportunity that we can form some of the work groups to combine the committees right now are separated. I will say we probably even need work groups between policy and training. The issue here I will see is that not only the training can help the police to really change their cultures and their practice, and I will wish that the work group can also working on the recruitment itself. The newly graduated officers, the cadets from academy, they got different training from the people graduated 10 years ago, 20 years ago, who are already in the higher rank in our police force. But these are the people, lots of time, they are very used to the current situation, whatever passed down for hundreds of years, instead of having changes. These actually are the people having the highest resistance, especially if there are political factors or people back them up. And I really wish that, I don't know, one particular work group, I'm not sure which committee or committees should form together, is to also to look at the contract, the union contract. Because lots of things right now, commission gets obstacles is also because we do not know how the union contract, how it was formed, why these items are in there. Now, it really prevents you guys to do the correct jobs for that. So I think from this year on, we should think about more of the functional, practical work groups we need, to be under even more than one committee, like 2 or 3 committees together. So even the work group could be bigger, but it will serve the purpose better. So I wish all the commissioner can also think about this particular options to form more of the practical, important work groups to support the work you all need to do in order to speed up for the time we wasted in the past. Thank you.
Thank you, Lou.
Anything else? I'm gonna say that we can adjourn this meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Great job.